I moved here to Belfast in 2005. I spent most of my teenage years in a prison cell where I was locked up for 23 hours a day. When I was released from prison, I developed a pretty unhealthy relationship with alcohol. And so I decided I need to move, I need to relocate, I need to go somewhere to fix my alcohol problem. And of all the places, I picked Belfast. I know, it seemed like a good idea at the time. But here's the thing, it actually worked. You know, I attended support groups for alcoholics up on the Antrim Road in North Belfast. And I remember when I went there, I was convinced I'm going to be judged or rejected or ridiculed. You know, at the time, I was an angry, arrogant English guy with a skinhead and a Cockney accent. I thought they're bound to just say, you know, get out of here. But what I was met with was the opposite, was empathy, compassion, understanding. And for the first time in my life, people sat around in a room and got open and honest about their difficulties. It may sound like quite normal, but for me, in the community I grew up in, and especially in prison, you couldn't show any weakness. You had to portray an image that you had it all figured out. And so this became like the foundation of my sobriety, you know, through the hospitality and the kindness shown to me by the people of Belfast. And I got to 1 year sober, and I thought, I'm strong enough now. I'm strong enough to go back to London. And I thought I knew a few things about connection. And then I met a woman called Sasha. Sasha is my wife. She's here today. And I had a thing of presenting a version of myself that was confident, charismatic. I was a pretty good salesman. And underneath, I was hiding all the trauma, all the pain from my childhood. And in the early stages of our relationship, we had a thing where every Friday night we'd like hang out, we'd watch a movie or we'd get some food. And what started to happen was, as I knew these Friday nights were coming around, I would distract myself. I would go to the gym, or I'd work late, or I'd be there, but I'd be like scrolling on my phone. And thankfully for me, Sasha had done a bit of training as a therapist, and she used a technique called the notice and wonder technique. And the notice and wonder technique goes like, Michael, I've noticed on Friday nights you're quite disengaged or you don't want to be here. And I wonder, is it because you don't love me? Or is it because there's something else going on with you? At this point, I felt like she was poking a finger in a big wound, and I wanted to get really angry. But I had this other part of me that was saying, do you know what, she's right. And the truth was, I didn't actually know why I was doing it. And so I just said that to her. I said, look, I don't know why I'm doing this, but I'll try and find out. And so I searched online, and I sought out the help of two worldwide known relationship therapists called Dwayne and Catherine O'Kane. They're based out in Canada. And so I'd done this online therapy session with Catherine O'Kane. And I said to Catherine, look, I don't get it. I love this woman. I want to connect with her. And these Friday nights come around, and I'm just like anxious. It's like, I don't want to do it. I want to be anywhere else but there. But I do want to be there. And it's really confusing. And Catherine said, okay, just stop there. What happened to you in between the ages of 1 to 7 in your childhood when you tried to connect with people you loved? And I was like, well, that's easy. I was like, well, my dad left before I was 1. My mum was an alcoholic. I experienced physical and sexual abuse from my uncle. Like, it was a mess. Everyone who was meant to look after me hurt me. And she said, okay, I wonder if this is what you're bumping up against when you're trying to connect with Sasha. And I was just like, wow, okay, light bulb moment, connected all the dots. I was like, oh my God, this is great, this is great, this is great. And then I was met with this shame of like, oh my gosh, this is so messy and ugly. What am I meant to do with this? And Catherine said, I want you to take this mess, and I want you to give it to Sasha. I want you to just tell her the truth. Don't put a bow on it. Don't make it pretty. Just let her in. At this point, I thought I'd wasted my money and my time. I was like, this approach might work in Canada, where everyone's a bit, nice. I don't think it's going to work here. But I thought, what have I got to lose? I'm either going to lose the woman I love, or I have this difficult conversation. And so I sat down with Sasha and kind of stared at the floor and said, look, there's a lot of stuff you didn't know, but in my childhood I experienced a lot of trauma. And everyone I was meant to trust and love hurt me. And I'm worried if I let you get close enough to me, you're going to do the same to me. And the way I try and manage that is to distract and escape. And I kind of waited there for her to get angry or look at me like I was really weird. And I looked up and she had tears in her eyes. And she said, thank you, I love you. And she grabbed me and she gave me a hug. And she said, I thought maybe you didn't love me anymore. I said, I love you so much that if you done to me what they done to me, I don't think my heart would ever recover. And that was my first experience of connection. I was about 28 years old at the time. It was the first time in my life where I'd brought all of me to a conversation. Not just the good bits and the shiny bits, like the ugly and dark parts of me in my life. And I hadn't been rejected or hurt. And it started this curiosity for me of like, why was it so hard for me to open up? And why is it so hard for us as men to open up? And I went on this like relentless search of trying to understand why. And the first thing that I came across was all of the social slangs I heard growing up that were just normal, like big boys don't cry, grow a pair, man up, stop acting like a girl. But I felt like there was more than that. I felt like it's more than just these slogans. And so I went back in history and I thought about the Industrial Revolution that took the men out of the home and put them into factories. All the wisdom that would have been in the home is now stuck in a factory. Then I thought of World War I, took all this wisdom from all the men and thousands never made it home. And then the same happened in World War II. And I thought, okay, then if all this wisdom is lost here, then perhaps I need to go back further. So I went over to America and I spent time with Native American tribes. And one of the first things I noticed is when they sit in ceremony, all the Native American tribes sit in a circle, which was really strange for me because, you know, I'd sat in classrooms where we were all in rows like we are here today. And I said to one of the elders, like, why you always sit in a circle? Why do you sit in a circle? And he said, because we need to see the eyes of every single person here. And I later discovered the research behind this is that 60 to 70% of communication is nonverbal. That means we're communicating 60 to 70% of the time, not by the words that come out of our mouth. Now, these Native Americans intuitively knew this, that in order to truly connect with people, we need to be able to see them. The other thing that was really interesting was, he said, when we sit in a circle, it also means everyone's voice is equal. You know, that even if you might feel like you're less important at the back, your voice is just as important when we're all in the same circle. Which really like kind of blew my mind away, how we set things up here in the Western world. And so this became like this foundation for me of like, okay, I need to somehow bring this all together and deliver this to the people who are suffering, people who are just like me, who grew up in poverty. And so I set up a charity in 2018 called the CIP Project. The CIP stands for Change is Possible. And I started setting up these circles where we don't judge, we welcome everyone. All of you is welcome, just like it was with Sasha. We sit in a circle, and we have some parameters. We have I statements, so you take ownership of your language. And also, when one person is talking, everyone else is listening. Yeah? Because I believe we were created that way, 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. And so we delivered this work to normal members of the public. What we saw was a reduction in depression, a reduction in anxiety. We saw a lot of people manage to get sober from addiction, and we saw more hope for the future. This was reported amongst the people who participated in these events. We then took it into the schools. We saw a reduction in sexual harassment from young boys to young girls. We saw a reduction in bullying. We saw a reduction in violence. We also saw a reduction in recruitment into criminal gangs like County Lines. I took it into businesses. We've seen the same thing there. Less sick days, less staff conflicts, better staff retention. And we took it into the prisons with some of the most notorious criminals across the UK and here in Hyde Bank in Belfast as well. And we saw a reduction in violence from inmate on inmate and a reduction in violence on inmate on staff, and more interest in taking part in activities that would benefit them when they're released. And so, look, connection is such a powerful tool that we can use. And I hope I've proven it a little bit there, but I want to just kind of use my own story as a final example. I'm standing here as a convicted armed robber who spent most of my teenage years in a prison cell. I come from a family of Irish travelers who actually, a lot of them settled here in Belfast. And I'm here today speaking in Stormont. I'm almost 18 years sober. I've got a wife and 2 kids who've never seen me drink. That's all because of the connection from you people that helped me 18 years ago. I believe that, the age of the lone wolf is over. We need to connect. So this is my calling to you. If you're suffering, if you're in isolation, if you're alone, I'm calling you back home. I'm calling you back into connection. Because I truly believe that connection is the most powerful medicine we have. Thank you.